Hey, what's up everyone, and welcome to a brand new movie review. I know it's been quite a while since I've done one, and this time I'm taking a look at the brand new X-Men movie. This is X-Men Apocalypse. It's been out for a few days, so I'm not going to waste a lot of time here talking about it. Well, I am, but I'm not going to waste a lot of time talking about it review-wise, because what I want to do in this video is that I'm going to review the movie really quickly, and then I'm going to get into some spoilers, because I want to talk about some of the stuff in this movie. I'm sorry I laughed there. There's a reason why I laughed, because I remember some of the stuff in the movie I do want to talk about, because this movie, if you do not know, I love the X-Men movies for the most part, especially Bryan Singer's X-Men films. The first two I loved. The first one's goofy right now. It is. Like, if you watch it now, you'll be like, this is silly. But I enjoy it still. The second one is a very, very serious movie, and very, very much more serious in tone than the first one. Of course, the third one's not that great. X-Men Origins Wolverine is hilarious. It's a straight up B movie, and I enjoy it. First Class is a great one, and it has some of the goofy elements, but the overall story and characters are set to be serious and likable and interesting, and I love that movie. Days of Future Past, amazing film. Love it. It's my favorite X-Men movie. Really great movie, and it doesn't overindulge when it comes to action and special effects and all that stuff. It is a straight up dramatic, I guess just dramatic, well done X-Men movie. I guess I could just say that. So, when I heard Bryan Singer was back for a brand new X-Men movie, I was like, yes, they're going to bring in Apocalypse, who I've heard of before. One of the few villains in the X-Men universe, besides, of course, Magneto. You know, the more popular X-Men villains. One of the few X-Men villains that I actually did know from either the cartoon from a long time ago or from the video game X-Men Legends Apocalypse, or Rise of Apocalypse. X-Men Legends 2, by the way. And that game was great. I don't remember too much about Apocalypse in that game, but I do remember playing that game, and I thought it was incredible. Love that game so much. So I was really looking forward to seeing Apocalypse in this one. Oscar Isaac, love that actor. X-Men Apocalypse is a fun movie. I'm not gonna lie to you. It is. It's a fun movie, goofy as hell, really silly, and overly generic compared to other X-Men movies. It is just straight up a villain of the week here. We have Apocalypse this time. It might as well be Ultron from Age of Ultron, or anybody else in any superhero movie ever that wants to destroy the world, because that's exactly what Apocalypse wants to do. He's a generic villain. He's not that interesting. At first, he's a little creepy because he has all these powers, and he just kind of like walks around and stares, and it's like a little creepy at first, but then it becomes generic villain. I want to rule the world, and I'll have a speech where I'm like, I will destroy the world, and it's just generic shit we've seen all the time. Now, like I said, the movie is fun. Even though it's generic, you know exactly where it's going to go. There's no real message in this film, unlike all the other X-Men movies, really, besides maybe Origins and maybe even the Wolverine. But those are two very standalone titles, obviously, because those are Wolverine, and that's not all about the X-Men. Even though X-Men Origins Wolverine was a lot about the X-Men as well. Still, it didn't have messages, just like this one doesn't really have a message. It's not about, like, I mean, it kind of is. It's about, like, humans don't like mutants, and mutants don't like humans. You know, Magneto hates the humans. But it's not, that's not the main plot. The real main plot is just Apocalypse. Even though they introduce little things here and there and cameos from other mutants, and of course they introduced the younger versions of Jean Grey and Scott Summers and Nightcrawler, mutants we've seen before, played by older and more veteran actors, I guess. Well, not actually. I guess not veteran actors at the time, but now they're veterans. But, even though we get all that, there's no message, there's nothing dramatic about it, but the movie is fun. It's corny fun. There's so many goofy moments. The special effects at times are so bad that they're laughable. There's some really corny dialogue. There's humor in here that either is hit or miss, and even when it's miss, it's so just dumb and just like corny and campy that you can't help but just laugh because they tried. The special effects, I have to go back to special effects. The special effects are truly special. Some of them are abysmal. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Like, in the beginning, they have this whole ancient Egypt segment where they show Apocalypse in ancient Egypt and yada yada. It doesn't matter what's happening, because what is being shown is some awful special effects. Like, immediately I was just like, wow. Like, there's these brick stones sliding down like a slide, and they look terrible. People are getting burned alive. And by the way, this movie is extremely violent. But there's people getting burned alive, and the fire is so bad, and the face looks terrible. And there's a huge, like, a big wide shot of just like the face, like close up. And I'm just like, oh, don't show that. That's terrible. And not because it's violent, his face is burned away. It's just bad special effects. There's one guy that like jumps in the air, and one of the mutants that is serving Apocalypse at this point in the movie crushes him into a ball, which admittedly is a nice visual until you see how bad the special effect is, where he just like crunches into a ball. I guess they couldn't find someone that could just do that, kind of like bend himself into a ball. If so, he should be cast into the Metroid movie that they're most likely going to make. But that guy doesn't exist because they just used a special effect. But there's some really bad special effects all the way throughout the movie. There's some laughable moments. There's a part... I don't want to spoil too much because I will get into spoilers in a second, but there's a part with Magneto that's supposed to be dramatic, and it is until the ending. I'll talk about it later. But there's some really laughable dialogue here and there. There's some really good moments. There's some really great actors here doing a damn good job for the most part. James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, what's his name? Evan Peters, who plays Quicksilver. All these actors do a damn good job for the most part, except Jennifer Lawrence, who is very, very weak, I'm going to admit. She's not good in this movie, and I like Jennifer Lawrence quite a bit. I really like her in Hunger Games. Loved her in Silver Linings Playbook. Winter's Bone, that's like one of the first movies she was in. She was great. And First Class, I really liked her. Days of Future Past, she was like one of the weaker parts. Here she is the weakest part acting-wise. She is just not that great. She's really not a good Mystique, and really I don't even care about the Mystique character that much. But from other stuff I've seen, like even the cartoons, like X-Men Evolution, like I like Mystique as a character in those. Didn't like her in the original X-Men movies, but I like her as a character in some way. Just not in any of the live-action movies, I guess. Yeah, so she's really obviously bored. She doesn't want to do it anymore. Just don't do it anymore. I know you're doing it just for the money. Just don't do it anymore. No one really cares. Does anybody love Mystique in these movies? I don't care about Mystique. I don't. And they focus on her too much. In this movie, she's like recruiting like mutants. She's barely doing anything except she has so much screen time, and she's really lame in it. She's lame. Like, everybody else is great. All the newcomers, like Sophie Turner as Jean Grey, and like I said, Evan Peters as Quicksilver. He's not new, but you know, he has a bigger role in this one. And Ty Sheridan as Scott Summers, who I love that kid. Not in a weird way, but I love him as an actor. Okay, don't judge me. But I really like that actor. And Cody Smith-McPhee, who was in The Road, plays Nightcrawler. He's great. Everybody else is great. Like I said, James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender, even though there's some moments where their characters either become stupid for no reason or do things that are hilariously awful when it comes to acting. And like, there's some really bad moments. But for the most part, they're all really good. Everybody's good. It's just that the dialogue is really, really badly written. The story itself is not interesting. The villain is so lame and not threatening at all. And there's just moments where it just doesn't have the tone of an X-Men movie. It just feels like the tone of a Avengers or an Iron Man movie, or just one of the generic, like Thor 2 or something like that. It feels off. It really does. And that's my main problem with this movie. Even though it has some really goofy moments that I will get to in spoilers, because pretty much all the ones I want to talk about are spoilers. It's just really, really a shame that they went for campy now, after Days of Future Past was such a success. Everybody loved it. Everybody went to go see it, and people were like, oh, it's so good. This is the best one. And then immediately they went for Goofy the next movie. I don't know why. Why did they do that? Like, the last one did so well. It was the best when it comes to money, and critically, it was the best reviewed and financially successful X-Men movie. Why do this now? So really, that's all I have to talk about in the review, because there's not much else to talk about in this film. There's really not much. It all builds up to one giant action scene where Apocalypse recruits, by the way, I didn't mention this, he has like the 4 horsemen of the Apocalypse, and he recruits like 4 mutants, which includes Psylocke, Angel, Storm, a young Storm, and you have Magneto. Magneto is there for a reason I don't want to spoil, but he's there, and the whole last action scene is Magneto destroying an entire city, pretty much. And I'm just like, you gotta be kidding. Another movie where they feel like they need to destroy a city. They need to show cars flipping around and just things exploding and stuff. I'm just, don't do that. And they didn't even add like character development or anything. We got no character development from anyone, really. Not even the new young versions of characters we've seen before. They just give us exact same character development we already knew from the past films. That's really it. Like Jean Grey, we already know everything that they tell us in this movie. Scott Summers, same thing. Nightcrawler. Mystique is just a blank slate. James McAvoy's Professor X, you know, he goes bald in this one, and the way they explain him being bald is a little silly. And Magneto, he has a family. Something happens, and then he joins Apocalypse. That's it. So yeah, overall, it's disappointing. It's goofy. The action itself is fine. Some of the special effects made me laugh because of how inept they were. But there was some stuff, like, I can never say it was boring. It really wasn't. It was just disappointing that it turned like this. It's disappointing, but it's still not bad. It's not a terrible film. There is enjoyable moments. Acting is pretty damn good. Quicksilver has a scene-stealing scene once again, even though it's not as good as the first time. And there's a lot more CG in that one scene. Overall, I'd probably give X-Men Apocalypse. I'd still give it like a 24 out of 40. It's still a fine film. That's like around a 6 out of 10. It's still a decent film. That might even be like a 6.5 out of 10. I don't know. Let's just say 6 out of 10 for people that don't like my review system. 6 out of 10. I think that's exactly what it is, actually. So there you go. 6 out of 10. Not a bad film. If you liked it, good for you. If you didn't like it, then I'm not too far away from most likely what you think. So overall, X-Men Apocalypse, I was about to say an embarrassment. It's not as bad as X-Men 3 or even X-Men Origins, but it is one of the weaker ones. And it's definitely the weakest Bryan Singer one. I'm very disappointed. But now, let's cut here, and I'm going to get into the spoilers because I need to talk about some of this stuff.